Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you on Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. Uh, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We just had a thrilling conversation the previous hour with some University of Chicago students. Their encampment was raided at 4:40 a.m. and it was violent. It was violent. About 60, um, really, they were troops. They were heavily armed and girded, and they were throwing things about in the encampment. It was a really violent scene, and the young people said, "Look, I'm trying to leave," and they they were being jostled about. It was really an awful, awful scene, and yet they're steadfast about that for which they're calling justice and peace all over the world. They're looking for the South Side, Dwight McKee, the senior advisor to Cornel West in his presidential campaign, and Josh Feinstein, Jewish Voice for Peace Action in Michigan. They're calling for this major university of the world, one of the Ivies, if you will. They said, you have taken from the South Side and you have undermined the Black community primarily. You need to restore them. All of the money that you have, the billions you have, you need to reinvest it in the community. That is one of their asks. In addition to finding out where do you invest the money that I pay this university? Oh, I mean, this is my tuition. Where is it going? And so we just hold these young people up in prayer because the corporate media are portraying them as being violent. They're not. Thoughtless. They're not. Irresponsible. They're not. These are the best and the brightest among us, and we need to support them. We need to support them. So today, on AM 950 Radio and on my Facebook page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page, please, everybody, Facebook has been in touch with me and they want you to do this. They want you to please go to YouTube. Come on over here and meet the Morning Stars here where we're having some stirring conversations. Like and subscribe and click that bell so that when we come up live, you will be notified. What is going on with this campaign? I tell you what, Dwight McKee predicted this 4 years ago, 3, 2, 1. 4 years ago, he said, even if he loses, he's going to win because he's never going to leave. He will reestablish a White House in the South, and it will be called Mar-a-Lago, and he will be running Washington from Mar-a-Lago. Has he not done that? Yes. Left office? No. We talk about him every day, like we talk about a sitting president. Yes. The air hasn't gone out the room. One of the things we learned from the boss, really probably the most iconic and powerful mayor in the history of the modern United States, Richard J. Daley. One of the things we learned from him, Dwight, was that you never call the name of your enemy. And yet, his name has been called every day. And so now, you said that if they take him, if they even think about indicting him, putting him on trial, Dwight, you said that he would. I'm just telling you because I want you to speak to it. You said that's not a good idea. What did you say? Why turn a what?
Why turn a monster into a martyr?
That is what's happened. Now, I won't call him a monster, but guess what? Mm, guess who is a martyr? Guess who's strung up on the cross? And now he said he's going to make a sacrifice. Let me read this story to you. You can't make this stuff up. No one, why won't anyone listen to you, Dwight? I mean, I listened. He said, I will take the sacrifice. I will take the sacrifice. I will. Because I love this country so much that I want you to know that if I have to go to jail as this judge is trying to make me shut up, well, guess what? I don't mind doing that. And let me quote him. He made his usual post-trial statement that he's been doing after these hearings every day. And Judge Juan Merchan's gag order, he's not paying attention to it, although he's been fined, and the judge has threatened him with jail time. He's announced the prosecution. Of course, he said the judge is so happy, and I quote, about 2 to 3 more weeks because all they want to do is keep me off the campaign trail. That's what this is all about. And he continued, and have the other thing. Uh, it's maybe what's even more disgraceful, he said, is the gag order, where I have to watch every word I tell you people. You ask me a question, a simple question. I'd like to give it, but I can't talk about it because the judge is giving me a gag order and says you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice every day. The Patriot. Dwight McKee.
So predictable that he was going to play it this way. You know, he is is a master gamesman. He comes out of the casino industry, so he understands how you play the game and the games. He understands that everything is stacked for the house, and so that if he could create the narrative, and if he could play the martyr, that there was a great deal of people who would empathize with him, and he would be the savior of democracy, which is how he's been playing it. And Biden's been playing right into his hands, strangely enough.
How has he been doing that?
By allowing his Justice Department to criminalize deviant behavior, which is deviant, but that's not necessarily criminal. And by trying to impose criminality in some things that it was out of order. Some things were criminal, some things were not. But when you throw everything against the wall to see what's going to stick, then you give him the wherewithal to say, this isn't just, this is personal. This is not about justice. It's about keeping me off the campaign trail. I've always said that I would have rather him lose when he didn't have this momentum. I would have rather him run and lose and then take him to trial once he lost the race. But don't make it seem as if you're afraid for him to run for office because you give him an upper hand, which is what has happened.
So when he uses the term sacrifice, I thought that was very interesting because Josh Feinstein and Reverend Dr. Todd Deary, he is not someone who I think is not smart. I think it is always dangerous when you think that you're the smartest person in the room. And people who have the most unserious public personae tend to be very, very sharp. I don't see him, Dwight, as someone who is not a smart guy. I think he's been very, very careful in his use of language. I mean, please, he even figured out which pose to take Josh and Reverend Dr. Yeary when he did the mugshot. It took several pictures, remember? So he could figure out which one was going to leave the best impression. And Dwight, you said that they would turn that into a marketing opportunity, and they did. He said all of this, Josh.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't use the word smart as much as I would cunning.
Okay.
It's kind of a little different, huh?
Okay.
Cagey, cunning.
Yeah, he's a cunning guy. You could see it when he had his TV show, how he manipulated the people on his show and played them against each other.
Mm-hmm.
He has a real gift for that. The Apprentice. If you really watch that show, it gives you all of the subtleties. If you understand what you're looking at, and you could see how cunning this guy was and how he could manipulate the environment and play people against each other. And so he takes that skill set, which is how he, was able to maintain his wealth and how he's not been why he's not been in jail so far. And I think that's what people underestimate about him, because they confuse basic with stupid. He's not a stupid guy. He's a basic guy, but he's very, very cunning.
Well, do you think that he's willing to go to jail?
Yes, I do think he's willing to go to jail. I think he's trying to provoke going to jail
Why?
because it turns him into the hero. Because his position would be is he's going to jail not because of what's something he's done, is he's going to jail for the sins of the people. He's going to turn the jail cell into Gethsemane, and a lot of people will buy that. It will become not a jail cell but an altar. It'll become a cross. And if you think he's a martyr now, wait till he plays the "I've been locked up for your sins" card.
Joshua, don't fall out.
Sorry.
Please stay with us. Stay with us.
I'm listening, and I'm also everything Dwight is saying has merit, and I agree with, even down to Trump is always 3 steps ahead of his opponent, and it doesn't mean he has good intelligence, but he has tremendous instincts and understands human nature. That's for sure.
He does that.
So I think where I would disagree with Dwight to a certain extent, but not know what the alternative is again, still from Trump is a bully, and the way you have to stand up to a bully. But the calculus here is actually when you go after him for laws that he's broken, and I would submit that you said deviant behavior is not criminal behavior. You said some is criminal, some it isn't. I think that you have to stand up to the bully. You have to go after the bully with the crimes that have been done. But the problem is, knowing that when you do that, you're essentially making him into the martyr and making that calculus of, okay, we're going to do, quote, what is right and actually pursue the justice angle, because I think that it is important to do so. But I understand it's going to create the backlash. So how do you manage that? The way to manage that is to make sure, and again, like you just pointed out, Santita, me sighing and huffing and puffing doesn't help my cause, doesn't help you. You have to rise above that and say, okay, we are prosecuting because a crime was done. And don't get into whether Mr. Trump or President Trump or this Trump or that Trump. We're just doing this. As much as one human being can wish another human being well, we honestly try to bring ourselves to do that, and we're going to pursue it. Do you see it? Try to take the emotion out of it. Mm-hmm. Because, again, to your point, the moment I sigh, that's giving Trump, I'm literally giving Trump oxygen. I'm literally giving him oxygen.
But the risk you run, Josh, is that when you try to kill Gunzilla, if you don't kill him, when you electrocute him, if you don't kill him, you make him stronger.
Yeah.
And so with the electricity, you turn him into a dinosaur monster.
Yes.
Into a fire-breathing monster.
Believe it or not, I get your analogy, and it makes sense.
Yeah. And so if they wasn't sure they could take him out, they should have taken a different approach, because you left him a fire-breathing monster rather than just a monster.
Fair enough. I think you're right. The calculus of death by 1,000 cuts, like you said, is just giving him little bolts of electricity, which makes him bigger and stronger and fire-breathing. I don't know. I can't, armchair quarterback it, but I guess, Dwight's idea is you have to come with a proper offensive that is, like you said, is going to render your opponent defeated, not just annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. It seems he grows larger by the day.
Yes, he does.
And when he said sacrifice, that was the headline.
I mean, you got to hand it to him. The guy really understands human nature.
But that's how he's been in the headlines for 50 years. This is a New York real estate developer who's become about the most powerful man in the world. I mean, it's just a fact. It certainly he's held that office, and you have to try and figure out how has he been doing this and who's being played here. Is the judge being played? Are we being played? Because he's playing a game.
What is disconcerting is not necessarily Donald Trump. What's disconcerting is what it says about human nature. Essentially, this is a litmus test to saying, if you were manipulative and you were a bully and you were a self-centered sociopath, you will succeed because he is successful.
Well, we've had that as president before, so we've done that.
I like to live in my make-believe world.
No.
I'm trying. Go ahead. Yes.
You're talking to descendants of people who were enslaved.
Right.
In the
United
States.
Gotcha.
no, I mean, no, really, it's not even,
No.
no apologies needed. Look, I'm just telling you, the little awful bits of America's history we don't want to touch. And no, the little awful bits of everybody's history no one wants to touch. But guess what? It's here. I mean, and so we've had a president who was called the Indian killer. We had a president who dropped not one but two atomic bombs, and he didn't have to. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that to those people. I mean, this is what we've genocided indigenous people. We didn't have to do that. I'm just saying this is it's part of the human experience, and at some point it's got to stop. But let me bring on Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, because he brought the Constitution into this. Reverend Dr. Yeary, he said, "You know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day." Don't crash the car. Just
Good mean, by the way.
Well, I think that's, Josh, is the essential question. One, he's giving attribution to a document he clearly has not read. And so he's claiming the benefit of coverage that really is the entitlement that we've seen before. And I think as we've been kind of talking about why he's kind of gaming the system, why he's doing what he's able to do, why he's able to get the kind of response, is because when we look at the embodiment, the literal embodiment of what white supremacist entitlement looks like, it is actually playing out in recognizing that what I will do is I will take what is really for many a sense of, all right, he's going to be treated like every other potential criminal defendant. And he's going to say, no, I'm being treated differently. And then I'm going to give you some associations to say, see, I'm just like you. So I'm going to take mugshots, and I'm going to say, Black people were able to resonate with me because of my mugshot. Well, it's not quite the same, because Black folk don't get the entitlement of considerations from a judge to basically thumb your nose at a court order 10 times. How about not one time? You better not, right? Otherwise, we're going to jump right to the I'm not going to fine you 2 or 3 times and then decide I'm going to lock you up. I'm going to lock you up and let you sit there until you figure it out. Or I'm going to appeal to this notion that somehow or other the Constitution is so much tied to my faith, I'm going to sell Bibles with the United States Constitution in it, like somehow or other, as some of the evangelical pastors have said, that is borderline blasphemous to take what is ascribed to be the word of God and put it on par with a human created document. Right. It's just thinking about all of those things. He is playing on this. See, I'm like everybody else, when in reality, I'm not like everybody else, because I'm in court with a Secret Service detail, with a judge that's saying, all right, I may have to, put you in jail, but who I'm concerned about is all of the people who got to go to jail with you. Secret Service, security, special consideration. How are we going to give you special accommodations? They talked about sending him to Rikers Island, to one of the newer buildings that has private pods, and they're going to give him a whole wing so that the Secret Service can be there with him. That is not, let's be real clear. I'm a criminal defense attorney. Those are not the living arrangements that regular everyday criminal defendants get when they violate a court's order. So this dude is not being mistreated. He is being treated with really kid gloves, because folks really don't want to play into, and I think Dwight is right on this, is that he really does want to be put in a position so he can say, yeah, I went to jail, because then what he's going to come out with is say, see, all of the criminals, I have something in common with you. So you who are getting your votes restored, you should vote for me because I'm one of you. It is the most asinine consideration when we look at the fact whether we agree or disagree with what the charges are, nobody, when we've talked about other people who are facing all kinds of spurious charges at the hands of the government that are unjustified, this is one where they actually have like some evidence. They actually have some stuff that, yeah, he did it. When they're bringing in, they're not bringing in folks that have an axe to grind with him. They're bringing in his people who are saying, yeah, he knew this was going on. Who pays $130,000 for hush money, but books it at $420,000 because we have to do an upcharge on taxes to be able to keep the guy who cut the deal from having to be economically harmed, so I can kind of buy his silence? This isn't about Stormy Daniels and whether or not she slept with him. It's the fact that he has the wherewithal to be able to pay her, pay Michael Cohen, make sure he's not done, and get an entire organization to say, this is what this is for, and we're going to sweep it, because ultimately the objective is we want him, and he wanted himself to be president. That's the argument here. Now, whether or not he took documents in the other cases, this is not the first time. At the end of the day, this isn't. I hear he's played himself into being Godzilla. He's gotten that because he likes to play the character in the role. But the truth of the matter is until you had folks who were willing to kind of take on that risk to actually go after him, it's not the first time folks have gone after a president. It's not the first time that and it wasn't Nixon. Nixon just got out because his was so egregious. But when they've used impeachment and they've threatened these special investigators and gotten a special prosecutor, Clinton went through it, go on down the line. This is not new fodder for how they protect their interest in the system. This is really just a guy that's got government protection. We paying for him to roll in with a motorcade to be tried for alleged criminal behavior, with our public money being spent to keep him safe in a courthouse and a courtroom that we can't even go in and see what's going on. And then when he comes out, we've got cameras stationed in the hallway for him to have a press conference like he's still the guy. And then he gets back in that same motorcade that we're paying for, with the salary that we still pay for, while he's still being considered for the criminal behavior that he's alleged to have done. This is not a guy that is big. He is not. This is not a thing. If I wish I could get a police escort. If I get a police escort to go to court, I'm in the back seat of the squad car, not of the limousine. And so is everybody else on this call. So let's be real clear about what we're looking at, is that he has figured out that he is in such an elitist position to be able to argue that I am being put upon, that I can get the RNC to pay my legal fees, get people to really feel sorry for me and vote for me, put the Constitution in the Bible, put my mugshot out like I'm on a milk carton, and say that, you know what? I'm just like all of you other poor, dysfunctional people. And so therefore, I should be your guy to go back to the White House. I think at that point, we've been duped.
Well, my question is, and why does he have such heat on the streets, Dwight?
First,
is Snoop saying that he's, he feels what it's like to be a black man? I mean, all you can respond to it, including you, Josh. Everybody's got a take on this stuff.
Well, first thing is, he didn't put himself in that position. He allowed himself to be put in that position. Is that Biden put him in that position? He just took advantage of that. And that's why I say Biden them is the one that misplayed this.
Why do you say that Biden put him in this position, and why do you say that Biden misplayed this?
Because he allowed his Justice Department to pursue these criminal charges at a time that there was going to be no real, if that's why I say you have to calculate your victories and your defeats at a time when everything is on the line. And so he risked he bet the bank that he'd have to win these cases, because if Trump walked away from these cases, he's going to automatically be the president. I can guarantee you that. And so Biden gave him more fodder to do and he was cunning enough to allow them to do that, to play the martyr. And that's why I said that you have to understand, this guy understands consequential thinking. He understands cause and effect, and he is about 3 steps ahead of all of his opponents, which is why he was able to neutralize them from get-go. When you looked at how the campaign started, where he was running through the cream of the crop, running against the cream of the crop of the Republican Party, and how he took all of them out, that should have showed you something. How
He
he took out
avoided them.
Bush.
He didn't take them out. He waited them out. He made
No. He took them out. Bush.
He took them out.
Oh, you talking
Romney.
about the first? You talking about the
I'm
first
talking
time?
about. I'm talking about. No. I'm talking about when you
2015.
saw how the campaign shaped up. The cream of the crop of the Republican Party was running against him. The
You're talking about
establishment.
2016, not 2020.
Yeah, I'm talking about 2016. I'm talking about when he first ran. And he ran against the cream of the crop of the Republican Party, the Republican establishment, the who's who in the Republican Party, and how he systematically took every one of them out. They should have known then what they were dealing with. That this is not an ordinary guy. And so Romney, Bush, the royal part, the Cheneys, he systematically took all of them out. And so anybody who understands cause and effect would have said, oh, this is a different kind of creature. We need to play this differently. We can't play this guy as an ordinary guy.
How should they have played him?
I have
First, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Listen to Dwight again. The threat, the anxiety and fear of something that will happen is always greater than almost always, not greater than except, I guess, in retrospect, this idea that we have to charge him, you have it as the idea is throughout, it would have been better throughout the campaign, Caesar saying, here's the things the guy has, quote, done. We're thinking about charging him, but we're going to have an election first. One, you get the message of here's the things that he's done, but without actually, again, serving up to him the ability to be the martyr or the victim or the one pursued. He's done this, but we're going to have an election. I think actually even... Well,
he's alleged to have done
alleged. My apologies. But so in terms of the court of public opinion, when you say the alleged things, it goes in a ledger. People make up their minds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still playing this out in my head, but to Dwight's point, it probably would, in retrospect, make more sense to say, we have this on the docket for 2025 to do X, Y, Z. One, it gives more impetus to the people that are on both sides to say, we've got to make sure that he's elected or make sure our guy's elected. It gives more actual fuel because there's more uncertainty. Now we've given plenty of certainty.
Josh, what they should have done is taken a geopolitical approach. Is that the victory would have been in the electoral college, so the focus should have been in the electoral college. Is what the Democrats, the mistake that they made is all of the progressives, all of the energy, all of the expansion they locked out of the party. When they had the momentum around Bernie in that crowd, they had the young people around Bernie in that crowd, rather than focus on that, expand the party, open up the opportunities and the platform for other people's participation, rather than take that approach and then to play the game politically at the electoral college level. They forfeited that because they were so intent on locking Biden in and locking everybody out. And that's where they lost. That's what the focus should have been, rather than focusing on Biden, making him president, and then focusing on trying to take him out legally, because it was never going to work that way.
Wow, it's very insightful, Dwight. What you basically said is you don't solve a problem by keep on going after what you're against and what you want to prevent. You solve a problem by coming up with, here is the solution. Bernie is a solution. Let's expand the tent through Bernie.
That's correct.
That is the way to have approached it.
That's correct.
I would double down in saying and I'm a Democrat, we as Democrats have failed twice in that, both in 2016 and 2020.
We can go back further. This is what we do. I mean, we said defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
Yes. Yes.
I saw how the Democrats pushed back against the Reverend becoming a presidential candidate in '84 because no one had registered more people to vote in the history of the Republic than Reverend at that point. And that became even more true 4 years later. It's even more true today. How are you going to have someone bring you 3.5 million votes and you don't want them?
Because
Not just not want him, strategize on how to take him out. Clinton them strategized, started having meetings on how we can neutralize Jesse Jackson and lock him out.
No, take him out.
Yeah.
Look, in '84, we were in I was sitting with Shirley Chisholm. C. Dolores Tucker was the first Black woman to be Secretary of a state. She was Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And Casey Kasem's wife, who was the top DJ in America. You know, we grew up with him, Josh, and we all did.
Yeah.
And and Maxine Waters and several other women, and
some heavy hitters there.
Yeah, but we were not that heavy then. We were the outsiders, but we were there. Somehow or another, by God's grace, we got to the convention and we were still in the mix.
Wow.
And someone brought into the room, they were dispirited, and they brought in a fax that was announcing the formation of the Democratic Leadership Council. Bill Clinton, Sam Nunn, from Tennessee, my goodness gracious, the man who should have been president, Al Gore.
Gore.
Al from all of the right wing of the party. And they said that they were forming the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, which Reverend called the Democrats of the leisure class, to counteract the impact, in their words, of Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition and the 3.5 million voters he's brought to the party.
Wow.
And they continued, if we are not successful, we will leave the party and become Republicans. That was 1984.
Wow. Wow.
They did the same thing to Bernie in 2016.
Yep.
And 2020.
Yep.
Right? We're in South Carolina. Bernie has all of this momentum.
Yep.
All over the country, tens of thousands of people are pouring out into the streets in the cold to see him.
Yep.
And the establishment took him out. And all of the air went out of the balloon. And you say, then you want to blame Black voters for Trump? You all didn't come out and vote. That is a lie. We came out and voted. You all did this. And you keep doing it. Then the news media knows, they know how to shut you out. They shut you out by not mentioning your name. Every day since 2015, when he announced we've had a steady diet. It's been gluttonous of Donald Trump every day, all day. And then when he lost, he won because we kept talking about him all day, every day. And now, what, Todd? They have delayed the the classified documents case. The criminal trial has been delayed indefinitely. What does that mean?
Well, it means when you have the entitlement of being able to rely on the system to work in your benefit, you can leverage the system to your benefit. That's the thing that I think is understated with a former president being challenged by a system that during his presidency, he took an oath to uphold. This is really the test. The test of democracy is not whether or not Trump gets back in the White House. Because if he does, let's just be real clear. Remember, the DOJ position is the sitting president cannot be prosecuted. So anything he did before he went to office last time was told, basically stopped, paused while he was president.
In office, okay.
In office, right? The New York case was told because he wasn't in New York. He was physically in DC. He wasn't continuously in the state. That's the whole argument. What he does is he leverages the rules to his benefit. It is never about whether or not he did it. It is whether or not there's a technical way for him to get out of it. And so that's what he is playing here. He is playing the process and the rules of the process so that you never have to get to the substance of, is there really any evidence to put forth? New York has gotten farther along because it's the first criminal trial. It's a long shot because of the theory, whether or not they're going to be able to close that gap, and what happens if he were to be convicted. What does that look like? It's not going to make much change with his base because they've already said he could be sitting up under the prison. We still going to vote for him. So that's not even the issue. The real issue is if he gets to be president again, as he has taken credit for unraveling Roe. Let's not forget that the next item on the agenda for the conservative movement is Brown versus Board of Education, public accommodations, justified racial discrimination in America. Let's be real clear that some of the sitting justices right now, when they were being questioned before the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, were asked whether or not Brown versus Board of Education was good law. Was it rightly decided? And if you go back and look at Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, I think Alito, they all punted. No one took a position. And we know that Justice Thomas has already been on the record that says he disagrees with the rationale behind Brown versus Board of Education. Let's think about that in terms of its implications for the undergirding of civil rights law in America that has made it possible for people of color, particularly Black folk, to be more included, to be included at all in some of this grand thing that we would call the fabric. He is, let's be real clear, he's doing it his way, but it is the equivalent of carbon monoxide. By the time you realize you're sleepy, you're gone. He is playing that drum. Do not miss this. That if he gets the domination on the court that he wants, and he is precluded from prosecution because he will be the sitting president, whether he's the sitting in jail president or not, that's going to leave him 4 years to do the rest of the dismantling that he was really sent and intending to go to Washington to undo, which was one, to curry favor to get Roe overturned. And the second thing is, as we have seen with this court and the affirmative action cases, the voting rights cases that have gone up, those are just but bricks in the wall to ultimately get to the foundation of it all, which is Brown versus Board in 1954.
But then you've got a sitting president who's working very, very hard to lose this election, Josh.
He's Trump's. Biden is Trump's
right?
best weapon. Biden is Trump's best advocate.
Oh, wow.
He is. He is. He's,
no, I mean, look, it's just I'm not pushing back. I'm saying, wow, what an observation.
Yeah.
Well,
And he did all this, and he did all this with having gotten 7 million less votes, which says to me that he should not have been the president, except that he understood not how many votes you needed, but where you needed the votes at, which is what the Democrats do not understand. They don't understand politics, huh?
He did that in 2016. He had an electoral college strategy. I remember I was in New York working because I was an analyst at Fox. I was on my way to the studio. We're sitting in the hotel lobby. You've been there with us, Todd, at the Sheraton. When I saw Hillary's top staff walking through at 6:30 in the evening, I said, now I read that 2 days ago they stopped, they were going to have the balloon drop. This is not good. I was sitting with my brother Jonathan, who's now in Congress. We're sitting with some friends. He said, this ain't good. And he was looking at the screen. He said, he's going to take this tonight. And my heart sank. I said, you cannot be serious. He said, oh, no. He said, let me tell you what this guy did. He ran the tables. He said, remember, he's a gambler. They ran an electoral college strategy. They campaigned in all of the places that Hillary missed, and they kept picking up electoral college votes.
Here's why that's important, Santita, because I think we keep missing how the president is elected.
Yeah.
It is not a single election. It is 50 statewide elections that lead to one outcome based on who gets elected as the electors of the president, who then get to send their votes by way of the electoral college framework to
Mhm.
see who gets to 270. I don't care if you have a popular vote spread of 15 million votes. It matters not, because you could conceivably have that kind of a spread between, let's say, the populations of New York and California,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Huge numbers, right? So let's say you win big there, you hold your own everywhere else. But in the end, after you concede the electoral college votes in California, the electoral college votes in New York, if you end up fighting over everything else, you're not going to get Texas. You're highly unlikely to get Florida. You have some other states that are kind of hanging in there, could go kind of purplish either way. This notion that we keep arguing about, and I get it, well, he got more popular vote than everything else. That's fine if we have a popular way of electing the president. We don't.
Mhm.
Because we don't, we have to have an electoral college strategy to be able to say, where do we have the ability to swing the statewide election in states that carry a certain number of electoral college votes so that we can get our interest over the 270 mark? We keep arguing the emotionalism of a popular vote number that is absolutely irrelevant to the electing of a president, instead of having the strategy that Trump has. And Trump says, look, I don't need to count to 70 million. I need to count to 270.
And that's my whole point, is that he had electoral or geopolitical strategy, and we had no strategy, and that's why he won,
Well,
and that's why he's going to continue to win
Axios
because.
said that
Mhm.
6%, an Axios report said that 6% of 6 states will elect the president. These people, they are data. They are into data. I mean, when I've read studies of the Trump campaign from 2015 and 2016, it was absolutely data driven. I don't want us to miss that. And how he campaigned, how he spoke to people. Just if you gotta look at the win and figure out how they did it, because he didn't miss Wyoming, he didn't miss Montana, he didn't miss North and South Dakota and Iowa. He didn't miss these places. And if you want to win, if you want to be president, you got to win it all. It can't just be California, New York. That's not enough.
So the same thing is playing out this cycle.
Yeah.
Michigan, we have 10 or 11 electoral votes. I mean, what's interesting, and even though this goes on live, we're losing population. We probably don't really deserve as many electoral votes as we have, but we'll keep them. Michigan, Trump is well tuned to know what's going on here, and I think the Biden administration still has their blinders on. If they think that they're going to, Michigan is not blue nor is it purple. It is leaning red
It's
because
leaning red.
it's leaning red. I mean, I think that, to me, being on the street here, to me, that's pretty
Mhm.
obvious, Um, and
So
I
he's
think,
completely lost the Arab vote.
has he has he completely lost the Arab vote?
Yes, he has.
To be determined on the general election. At this point, yes.
Yeah.
But
So
when it comes down to what interest goes with which agenda, because the Arab interests don't necessarily take a shift for the better with Trump in the White House.
even though I'm close to the Arab community, I don't think that I feel like it's kind of silly for me to quote speak for them. They have a strong voice. I think all I can do is speak for myself, which sort of aligns with their point of view. Is Biden has not earned my vote. Someone who always he has not earned my vote, and he continues every day to demonstrate to me that he will not earn my vote. And I believe that point of view probably is similar to what you see in the Arab American community.
Okay, because I don't think you're speaking for them, but you're speaking about them. You live in Michigan.
Well, there's also, if you in terms of, again, my wife is Muslim, and what she's pointed out to me is those who have voted for Biden in 2016 feel a tremendous sense of guilt because in terms of this, in terms of what you're taught is if you enable something that you enable a killing, you are complicit in that killing. So people actually, never mind like, abandon Biden or wanted. There are many people in Michigan that feel like, I can't believe I voted for Biden because now this is happening. Shame on me. How do I atone for that? I mean, and that is something that it runs very deep. So with that in mind, Biden has, if you think about that, and then you have my own point of view, which is lose my vote. I cannot see Biden having a path to victory in Michigan. I cannot see it. I was out with someone, a progressive Jewish person last night. We were discussing, we were negotiating and discussing things, and they're very much afraid of Trump and a Trump presidency, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I agree with everything you're saying. However, Biden, he's not going to earn my vote. I said, I get very flippant there. I said, if he wants to earn my vote, it's very simple. He just has to figure out how to resurrect 35,000 souls.
Oof.
He can do that, then most likely, And I see Yuri is saying that's a bit flippant. I think the thing about that is, it's not just that. With each day that goes on, he seems to come out with a statement that's even more entrenched in a racist and Zionist way of thinking that, again, from a humanitarian point of view, I can't support.
Well, it seems like this is so deep with you, Josh. Why?
Why? Again, I think it's just a humanitarian litmus test. As terrible as Trump is as a human being, it's terrible, or in my opinion, is a human being. Terrible is about his conduct. It's about results. Under Trump, a genocide or a genocide-like activity, whatever you want to call it, did not take place. Actually, let me qualify that. In a community that I live for, that touches a community that I live in. So those things did not happen. All the horrible things that happened under Trump or this or that, it's under Biden's watch that you have this level of death and destruction going on in Gaza. Does that make me a one-issue voter? I still don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, I think it's just as simple as the humanitarian test that our current president is failing on a daily basis. It's as simple as that. It's not even political. It's just what did Abdul, the mayor of Dearborn, said? Not supporting a genocide is a low bar for leadership in terms of the test of leadership. I hope that makes sense, because I think Dwight and Todd, you may disagree. I don't know what your point of view is.
I feel the same way. I wouldn't vote for Biden anything other than to not go to hell or to go to heaven. I mean, there's nothing on earth that can make me vote for Biden, because I see him as a war criminal, and I see him as revere genocide. And which, when you look at all the data, he supplies the arms and he supports the policy. So can I live with Trump? Will Trump be worse? Well, we'll wait and see. And will I vote for Trump? No, I won't. But I certainly will not vote for Biden under any circumstances.
Well, as Black people who survived slavery, I cannot be frightened.
That's where the Arab American community are right now, Santita. Is, from my understanding, from talking to people, is they're like, exactly, look, they're at this point, they're like, something similar to what our African American brothers and sisters experienced. We are prepared for what may come. As horrible as it will be,
I have to deal with all the time anyway, and I'm not.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not voting for Trump, but I'm not going to live in fear. I lived through 4 years of Trump. Okay, I lived through Reagan, who had one of his opening events in Philadelphia, Mississippi. There's no train station there. There is no plane. There is no airport there. There's no bus stop there. That is where they killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney and buried them in a grave. Now, this man sent us some signals in 1979, 80. I got through that. And as a matter of fact, we registered more Black people to vote under him than anybody, because somebody dared to push back. I don't know if this will be an organizing mechanism, but I don't know, Reverend Dr. Todd Erie. But you know what? I want to bring on Mike Dempsey. Mike, we are about to go off the air. And Mike, I want you to come back. He is a union organizer, former board member of Veterans for Peace. Mr. Dempsey, will you come back and be with us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Okay, I have the hardest time logging in here.
Oh, well, but we're about to get off the air. Would you mind coming back with us in another day or so?
Sure.
Okay, but stay right there. This is everyone. We're going to have this brilliant union organizer, former board member of Veterans for Peace. There's a whole lot to unpack. No, sir, there's a whole lot to unpack around this election, and we want to get your voice.
Oh, yes.
But I couldn't let your handsome face stay down there and not bring you up.
Oh, can you guys see me? I can't see anybody. I don't know what's going on.
We're gonna work it out. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Stay right there, Reverend Dr. Erie. I've got a couple minutes for you.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. So to Josh's point, what this comes down to is not party, but principles. What's the agenda? And I think we get clarity around who is most viable once we hear the specifics of an agenda that addresses our interests. Neither one of them has gotten precise. One says, I got rid of Roe. One says, yeah, that one got rid of Roe. We need to kind of undo it. That part is clear. But when we think about the self-interest around communities that have always been disaffected in the political process, there's rarely any precision around what are you going to do for me if you were to become president. They're not going to get that granular. When we think about the sentiments of our Muslim brothers and sisters, you're going to have that same concern from the other side. Right now, it's on Biden's watch, but let's not forget there were issues and brewing issues under Trump's watch as well. Right, that he wasn't necessarily the great conciliator around Muslim issues and Muslim interests. So that's going to still be there.
You mean the ban?
Yes.
Well, not just the ban, but remember, it was the ban and the attitude that flowed from it that was informing his geopolitical position about what's going on and what's now the Middle East. Imagine if Trump had to negotiate a ceasefire with partners in the region, with the Netanyahu government, whom Donald Trump not only admires, he wants to emulate, because he wants to figure out how to take the kind of action that Netanyahu took with the court to give him cover and a pass to be able to be president for life. He wants to be the 25-year president like Putin is, as he started his now next term today or yesterday. I think it started. That's his framework. So when we talk about the interest of the people, my brother Dempsey, who's a labor organizer, the workers' interests are always secondary. And so it hasn't come down to, we don't have a party issue. Democrats and Republicans don't really particularly care for the working class. They don't seem to fight that much. We have an opportunity where labor has gotten some attention from the current occupant of the White House, but workers are still catching it all over the country, and there's more work to be done. When we talk about foreign affairs and foreign interests, we would rather spend money on the industrial complexes, prisons, and military. And so when we think about those issues and interests, we got to figure out what's on the agenda. Coming out of the convention, I think that's where you'll get some clarity, because once they have to take a position on all of these particular interests that communities are going to have, you're going to find out who's going to take a position and who's not.
Well, you're also going to have to look at some people who've lost 100, 200, 300 members of their families. They say 35,000 souls, Ralph Nader, and others have pulled numbers that put the number beyond 200,000. We don't know how many people have been killed there because they are under the rubble. And that is something that has not been lost on so many people of every background in the United States. And the fact that we are responsible because we're sending the munitions and we're funding it because we want a metropolis on the Mediterranean. Yes, because that's where the gas and the oil happen to be located. Follow the money, everybody. When Netanyahu went to the UN in September of 2023, just weeks before October 7th, he presented a new map of the Middle East, and Palestine was not on it. He presented online last week a new Gaza, which is a modern metropolis on the Mediterranean that does not include Palestinians. And we are at the center of that, and the United Kingdom. The Western world wants to take the oil from underneath other people's sand. And I promise you, before God, that will not stand. It's not going to work. I don't know how, but I know justice will be done. Not revenge, justice. And that's the key. That's the key. Josh Feinstein, Jewish Voice for Peace Action, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary from Rainbow Push and Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Dwight McKee, Senior Advisor for Dr. Cornel West Campaign, and Michael Dempsey, former board member of Veterans for Peace. Got to have you back. Union organizer, we're going to have you back. And you'll be able to see all of us as we can see you. How about that?
That sounds great.
I love it. I love you, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Much love.